Mark had a rhythm to life that never really changed. Every morning, he woke before sunrise, opened the curtains, and watched the neighborhood slowly come alive. He liked it quiet, the sound of birds, the hiss of the kettle, and the smell of wet earth from the garden. He'd lived with diabetes for years, but to him, it was just another item on the list of life's little inconveniences. A pill with breakfast, one more at night. Sometimes he forgot. Sometimes he didn't. His doctor had told him to check his blood sugar daily, but he'd grown tired of pricking his fingers. "I can tell when it's high," he'd say, trusting how he felt instead of what the numbers said. His wife, Evelyn, always kept an eye on him. "Mark, remember your tablets?" she'd remind. He'd smile, kiss her forehead, and say, "Sure." He didn't like to talk about his health. It made him feel fragile and old. To everyone else, Mark looked healthy. He still took long walks after dinner, helped fix the fence for his neighbor, even carried his granddaughter on his shoulders during family picnics. He'd say, "I'm fine. People worry too much." But beneath that quiet confidence, his body was telling a different story. There were small things, things too easy to ignore. Headaches that came and went. A heaviness behind his eyes after a long day. A tiredness that no nap could fix. He brushed them off like most people do. Evelyn noticed more than he did. She saw him squint at the newspaper, hold his phone farther away, turn the brightness up on the TV. When she mentioned it, he'd laugh. "Must be the lighting. This old house gets dim at night." But she wasn't convinced. Mark, however, didn't want to see the problem. To him, growing old meant learning to ignore little inconveniences. What he didn't know was that something inside him was quietly changing, something he couldn't feel or see. And before long, those little inconveniences would become impossible to ignore. It began one evening while Mark was watching his favorite football game. The numbers on the screen looked slightly fuzzy, and the players' faces seemed less sharp. He rubbed his eyes and shifted on the couch. "These glasses are useless," he muttered. Evelyn looked up from her sewing. "Maybe it's time for a new pair?" He smiled. "Or maybe I just need to clean them." The next morning, he went about his day as usual, watering his plants, reading the newspaper, feeding the birds, but he noticed something strange. The letters in the headlines seemed to swim across the page. He blinked again and again until they cleared. He told himself it was nothing, just the morning light playing tricks. Over the next few days, the blur returned, sometimes stronger, sometimes barely there. Mark tried to adjust. He began tilting his head, closing one eye, holding his phone closer, then farther. He even switched bulbs in the living room, blaming poor lighting. When Evelyn asked if his sugar levels were fine, he affirmed it was. "I'm okay," he said. "You worry too much." But deep inside, something bothered him. He'd always been proud of his steady hands and sharp eyes. He used to thread a fishing hook in one motion, spot a lizard in the bushes from across the yard. Now, even the small print on the medicine bottle looked like fog. One afternoon, while picking up groceries, the world seemed to dim for a moment. The colors in the fruit aisle looked dull, almost gray. He blinked hard, gripping the shopping cart for balance. Then, just as quickly, everything cleared. He looked around, no one seemed to notice. So he forced a smile and kept moving. But the episodes didn't stop. They came and went like shadows, lasting a little longer each time. Still, he told no one. Admitting it out loud would make it real, and he wasn't ready for that. He had no idea that these little flickers of blur were a warning, his body's quiet plea for attention. A signal of something far deeper than tired eyes. A few weeks passed, and the blur no longer came and went, it stayed. Reading became a chore. Sometimes, even the large headlines looked faded, and the colors on the TV felt washed out. One afternoon, Mark was trimming the flowers in his garden when he noticed something unsettling. The sunlight on the petals looked uneven, like one side of his vision was dimmer than the other. He blinked, turned his head, but the shadow stayed. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and whispered to himself, "Think I just need rest." But Evelyn had begun to notice. She watched as Mark leaned closer to read the mail, how he hesitated before walking down the front steps. One evening, she found him sitting quietly at the dining table, staring at a photograph of their granddaughter. "You okay?" she asked. He forced a smile. "Yeah, just tired. Been a long day." But Evelyn wasn't convinced. Later that night, she found his glasses on the counter, lenses spotless, perfectly fine. Still, he'd been rubbing his eyes all evening. Days turned into weeks, and the changes became harder to hide. He began missing spots while shaving. He bumped his shoulder against door frames. Once, he poured too much detergent into the washing machine because he couldn't see clearly. "You should see a doctor," Evelyn urged. Mark shook his head. "It's just my age." Everyone slows down a little. But even as he said it, a quiet fear stirred in him, one he couldn't name. That fear turned to alarm one Sunday morning. During service at church, the stained glass windows glowed beautifully in the sun. But as Mark looked up, the colors blurred into one dull shimmer. Faces around him faded into silhouettes. He blinked hard, once, twice. Nothing changed. He squeezed Evelyn's hand under the pew, whispering, "Something's wrong." By the time they left church that morning, Evelyn knew this wasn't just fatigue or age. What was happening to Mark's vision was something far more serious, and it was only getting worse. Evelyn had reached her limit. The small mistakes, the hesitation on the stairs, the way Mark tilted his head just to focus on a face, it wasn't normal anymore. "Mark," she said one morning, "we're going to see someone. Today." He tried to object, but she wasn't asking. She was telling him. At the clinic, the waiting room buzzed with quiet conversations and the faint smell of antiseptic. Mark sat beside Evelyn, fidgeting with his cap. "You know how many times I've been in hospitals? They'll just say it's my glasses again." Evelyn smiled softly but didn't reply. She knew fear when she saw it, and Mark was afraid. When the nurse called his name, he hesitated. His steps were slower than usual. Inside the exam room, the doctor, a middle-aged man with calm eyes, asked him a few questions. Then came the vision test. "Read the first line on the chart," the doctor said. Mark squinted. "Maybe P." "Try the next line." He leaned forward, frustration in his voice. "It's all fuzzy." Evelyn watched from the corner of the room, her fingers tightening around her handbag. The doctor nodded, expression neutral but thoughtful. He said, gently adjusting the slit lamp. A bright beam of light flickered across Mark's eyes. The doctor leaned in, silent for a long moment. Finally, he pulled back, resting his hands on the desk. "There's some swelling," he said carefully, "and a few changes I'd like to investigate further. We'll run some scans." Mark's heart sank. "Swelling? You mean like an infection?" The doctor gave a small, reassuring smile. "Not exactly. But I'd like to be certain before we talk details." Mark nodded slowly, his voice low. "Is it bad?" The doctor didn't answer right away. "Let's just say it's something we want to address soon." As they left the clinic, Evelyn reached for his hand. It trembled slightly in hers. Neither of them spoke on the drive home. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the quiet rhythm of Mark's breathing, uneven, heavy, and uncertain. 2 days later, Mark and Evelyn returned to the clinic. The morning air was cool, the kind that carried both calm and unease. Evelyn's hand never left his. Inside, the doctor was waiting with the results. He turned the monitor toward them, a dark background filled with cross-sections of Mark's eyes. "These are images of your retinas," he began softly. "They're the light-sensitive layers at the back of your eyes. They help you see clearly." Mark nodded slowly, eyes fixed on the screen. The doctor pointed to small red spots scattered across the scan. "These little dots are where blood vessels have leaked. It's common in people with long-term diabetes. High sugar levels damage the vessels, making them weak. Some close off, and others begin to bleed." Evelyn's brow furrowed. "So, what does that mean for his sight?" The doctor paused. "It means we've caught it, but not early. The swelling you see here," he zoomed in gently, "is already affecting the central vision. That's why things look blurry or faded." Mark sat back, his voice almost a whisper. "Is it permanent?" "Not entirely," the doctor said. "We can stop it from getting worse." With proper treatment, you can keep most of your vision. But it will take work, controlling your blood sugar, regular monitoring, and sometimes laser treatment to stop the bleeding. For a moment, the room was silent. Mark's heart sank, not just from fear, but from guilt. He thought of every time he'd waved off Evelyn's concern, every time he'd told himself, "I'm fine." Evelyn reached over, squeezing his hand. "We'll fix it," she said gently. The doctor smiled faintly. "You'd be surprised what the eyes can recover from, Mr. Mark. But we have to act now." The doctor's plan began immediately. Mark's diagnosis pointed to advanced diabetic retinopathy. The fragile blood vessels at the back of his eyes had started to swell and leak tiny drops of blood into his retina. The goal was clear: stop the bleeding, seal the leaks, and prevent new ones from forming. The first step was laser photocoagulation, a precise, light-based treatment that targeted the damaged areas of his retina. Mark was seated upright, his chin resting against a metal frame. Numbing drops dulled the surface of his eyes. The room went dark except for the beam of a faint green light that flickered in front of him. The doctor's voice was calm. "Keep your eyes still, Mark. You'll see some flashes." Then came the pulses, brief, concentrated bursts of laser light that gently cauterized the leaking blood vessels. Each pulse lasted less than a second, but together they formed a protective grid on his retina. The goal wasn't to restore lost vision instantly, it was to halt the damage. The lasers sealed the vessels, preventing further fluid from seeping into the macula, the part of the eye responsible for sharp central vision. Mark saw bursts of red and white light with each pulse, a strange constellation of flashes dancing before his fading sight. There was no pain, just the awareness that something delicate and irreversible was happening inside him. By the end of the session, the world looked cloudy, as though he'd stared too long at the sun. The doctor assured him it would clear in a few hours. But the fight wasn't over. The second phase involved intravitreal anti-VEGF injections, a treatment that targeted the body's own response to damaged vessels. In diabetes, the retina releases a chemical called vascular endothelial growth factor, or VEGF, which triggers the growth of abnormal, fragile vessels that bleed easily. The injections worked by blocking that signal. Each injection day followed the same quiet ritual. Numbing drops, sterile drape, the faint smell of antiseptic. The doctor would say, "Look to your left," and with a quick motion, deliver the medicine directly into the vitreous, the clear gel inside the eye. The needle was fine, almost invisible, but Mark felt the slight pressure, followed by the cool sensation of the drug spreading through the eye. Drugs like aflibercept and ranibizumab were designed to reduce swelling, stop bleeding, and in many cases, even improve vision over time. After each session, his doctor examined his retina under a bright light, comparing images from earlier scans. The leaking had slowed. The swelling around his macula was shrinking. Between procedures, Mark was placed on a strict follow-up routine: blood sugar control, medication adherence, and consistent monitoring with optical coherence tomography, OCT scans that mapped every layer of his retina to check progress. The hospital staff taught him how diet and blood pressure could influence eye recovery. Every gram of sugar, every skipped medication, mattered now more than ever. Through it all, Mark remained still, patient, and hopeful. The hum of the laser, the precision of the injection, each sound, each step, was part of a battle quietly fought in the space between light and darkness. After weeks of hospital visits, Mark was finally cleared to continue his recovery from home. His world looked different now, not just visually, but in spirit. The bright lights of the treatment room were replaced by the soft glow of morning sunlight filtering through his living room curtains. Every follow-up appointment became a small victory. The doctors smiled at his scans. His retina showed less swelling, the bleeding had stopped, and the fine vessels looked calmer. His vision wasn't perfect, but it was stable. For a man who had once watched the world dim before his eyes, that stability felt like a miracle. At home, change became a new way of life. The kitchen that once overflowed with sugary snacks now held bowls of fresh fruit, grilled vegetables, and whole grains. His wife took charge of meal prep, measuring every portion with care. Gone were the bottles of soda, replaced by glasses of water and green tea. Mark started walking again, Not briskly at first, but enough to feel the rhythm of his heart match the steady beat of his footsteps. His doctor had emphasized movement, 30 minutes a day, Mark. That's how you keep your eyes and your heart strong. He learned to check his blood sugar every morning, logging each reading in a small notebook his granddaughter had decorated with stickers. He no longer ignored his medication schedule or postponed his checkups. Each act of discipline became an act of gratitude, for the sight that remained, and for the people who refused to let him give up. Emotionally, the fear that once lingered in the dark corners of his mind began to fade. He could once again see the shimmer of the sunset, the green of his garden, and the face of his granddaughter as she ran to him with her newest drawing. It wasn't as sharp as before, but it was clear enough. His doctor called it a remarkable turnaround. Mark called it a second chance. And from that point forward, he became an advocate in his own right, sharing his story with neighbors, at clinics, and in community groups. Don't wait for the blur, he'd tell them. Get your eyes checked. Take care of your body. Diabetes doesn't have to take everything from you. Mark's story is a reminder that diabetic retinopathy doesn't start with pain. It starts with silence, small, invisible changes in the eyes that grow worse over time. But it's also a story of hope. Because when detected early, vision loss from diabetes can often be slowed or even prevented. So, what can we learn from Mark's journey? Regular eye exams save sight. People living with diabetes should have a comprehensive eye exam at least once a year. Retinal scans can detect tiny changes before symptoms even appear. Keep your blood sugar, blood pressure, and cholesterol under control. High levels of any of these can damage the delicate vessels that nourish your eyes. Consistent medication, balanced meals, and portion control make a real difference. Stay physically active. Exercise helps improve insulin sensitivity, circulation, and heart health, all of which protect your eyes. Even a 30-minute walk each day adds up. Eat for your vision. Fruits, leafy greens, whole grains, lean proteins, and foods rich in omega-3s nourish the eyes. Limit processed sugars, saturated fats, and excessive carbs. Quit smoking and limit alcohol. Smoking accelerates vessel damage and raises your risk of blindness, while heavy drinking disrupts glucose control. Don't ignore symptoms, no matter how mild. Blurry vision, floaters, or dimming light can all signal something serious. The earlier it's caught, the better the chances of preserving sight. Diabetic retinopathy is one of the leading causes of blindness among adults worldwide, but it doesn't have to be. Early diagnosis, lifestyle change, and proper treatment can keep vision clear for years to come. Mark's vision may not be what it once was, but he can still see the people he loves, the garden he built, and the sunrise of another day. And that's what matters most. If stories like Mark's moved you, imagine how many more lives could be changed just by spreading awareness. At Pathology Tales, every story reminds us that health isn't just science, it's life, it's family, it's survival. So before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because the next story might just save a life.